Okay, next item on the agenda, effective punitive measures on school spirit and culture. Does anyone want
That one was related to no spectators.
Yes.
For the games.
Right.
And most of the students felt that it was kind of a
overreaction.
That and impulsive. Without any thought.
It's a lot of impulse.
Right. And so that was the problem. And again, it was the lack of communication. It was just, no spectators. And then the big issue was visitors can bring their
parents,
their spectators.
Right.
And so I spoke with a lot of the basketball players, the boys, and they said, so basically our home games are now visiting games because we can't have fans, but they can. And again, it was to try to punish those students who were misbehaving using
I have to throw in there the theme that develops here seems from the gates to the bathrooms to the spectators seems to be sort of impulsive reactionary. Let's try this versus, as I'm a broken record about, establishing basic expectations and protocols and for attendance tardies and all that stuff. And I think that the trickle down effect when you don't have a well-established structure is all the things we're seeing. The trickle down effect when you do have a well-established structure is maybe a lot less of the issues we'd be dealing with. So that's just square one that we've never addressed for several years.
And then there's this other thing too, where if the school's going to be hosting a dance or whatever, so there's behaviors that are just happening, but then when there's an event that's going to come down, now all of a sudden there's a crackdown, and now you have students that are just kind of caught up, and they're like, well, wait a minute, like it was okay for, these amount of weeks, but now that I've been doing that and nobody said nothing, now you have an event, now you're going to say something. So there's like this, from the student's perspective, there's this sense of unfairness or inconsistencies that's going on. So then it's like, like what's allowable, what's not, when is it allowed, when is it not? So, it just seems like
it's impulsive.
Right. It seems as though these events, which are meant to build up school spirit, is then used as a inadvertent gotcha, if you will.
For arbitrary punishment.
I wouldn't say that they're arbitrary. It's that there seems to be like a lack of enforcement for a while, and then
all of a sudden,
there's
arbitrary
enforcement, and it's just like it's like a mousetrap. It just snaps.
It's almost like we're only having the event so that we can punish people.
Yeah, which is arbitrary
from the student's perspective. Yeah.
I think building on what you guys said, every teacher knows that you build your classroom with a consistent structure, and that principle applies to school administration. And the administration does not seem to understand that you start the year with a consistent structure rather than being reactive. We all know that if you run your classroom with no consistent structure and then randomly you're like, well, Gio, you're talking, get out, right? Then the kids don't respect you, and then you have a class out of control. So if we are expected to do our jobs, the administration needs to be doing its job, which is creating a structure in which we can work without having kids randomly pop into our class all through the classroom.
So what's
our motion?
Yeah, a recommendation.
Going to sound a lot like what you've been saying.
Yeah. It's unfixable. Let's table it.
Do we want to?
No, I'll be here. But I make that that the administration consider rethinking how they leverage student events, or how the policy by which students can participate in student events. So, and I don't have more to offer than that.
I second it.
Right, again, it's just a clear communication.
Yeah.
That's it, so that the students know that, if A, B, and C happens, here are the consequences. But all they get is, here are the consequences.
Mm-hmm.
And
Right.
again, it goes back to the same thing, in order to punish the few, you punish everyone.
Mm-hmm.
Or if, like you just said, if we're going to do this method right now, a very clear, by this date, if you have X number of
Mhm.
absences, just like we should have in classrooms,
Mm-hmm.
you can't participate in whatever.
Mhm.
You got senior events at the end of the year, not 2 weeks ahead, we'll be checking.
Mm-hmm.
And if you're here every day for the next week, you can do
But
it.
it shouldn't be communicated if you are absent. It should be if you have this attendance rate,
That's
you get to
fine.
go.
Right.
Or something.
Right.
Yeah.
Or if you're caught in the halls doing something you're not supposed to be doing, it's something, again, it's the consistency.
And it should be established long before the event.
Correct.
It's the
All of
longest,
this should be established.
it's the longest motion ever.
I guess we need to put it in words because it goes really back to the communication issue.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
So I make a motion that administration establish a, concrete, detailed expectations for students participating in
School events.
school events.
Well in advance.
Well, it's like now.
Mm-hmm.
I second it.
Aye.
Aye.